Hello and welcome to the FilmDirt Lounge. After revisiting Alien already, well, I had to go back and revisit the sequel as well. So this is my full revisited review of the awesome Aliens. And I watched the special edition, which I believe is approximately 16 minutes longer than the theatrical cut. This is an incredible film, whichever version you watch. I do remember the theatrical cut very well. It's the one we all remember and that served us well, but the special edition is a far superior film. So it's not at all like the first movie where it didn't really matter much which version you watched, as the differences didn't really impact the story overall too much. For the sequel, the differences really do enrich and expand the story slightly. For starters, I think the scene at the very top of the film where Ripley and Burke are talking about all that time she's missed while she was in hypersleep, which was a long time. Was it 57 years? Just like in the first film, Sigourney Weaver's acting here at this point is absolutely brilliant. She's very good at conveying what's going on in her head and bringing it to the surface. I did speak already about how great Sigourney was in the first film, and in a fairly ensemble cast, stretched over a series, in this case 3 films or 4 films, however you want to look at this story. The main constant, the main glue that's holding this story together and making it actually believable over that time is Sigourney Weaver's great acting, and also combining it with action and suspense. It's also a very physical role as well, and she handles it perfectly. Now, of course, for this film, Ridley Scott didn't return. This is a James Cameron movie. He was on top form. This is the James Cameron we all love so much. I'm a bit up and down overall with his films. I did try with the first Avatar, and it's a bit one and done for me. And Titanic as well, I've never felt the need to revisit that. But Aliens and the Terminator movies, they're gifts, and I wish James Cameron would go back to that and develop those stories. He's been sidetracked by his other passions, which I think are a little bit lukewarm for a lot of the audience, such as his interest in the Titanic story and, of course, the Avatar sequels. Let's get involved in action again. I think that's probably what he's really good at. Also, just wanted to quickly touch on the scene at the top of the film I already mentioned. There was a brief mention of the engineers when discussing the settlements they visited in the first film. It was a scene later on, wasn't it? It was during the meeting scene, which was also an addition. I've just had no idea that was even a thing. I thought it was just something Ridley Scott wanted to develop himself with the Prometheus and Covenant films. So that took me back. That was a very nice surprise in this cut. And now we've got the Colonial Marines involved, which to me always had that Vietnam movie aspect to it, and a mech version of Vietnam kit. I think it looks really cool. They also all didn't really look uniformly the same. They all had their individual looks and customised uniforms. And as well, such big characters in there. Michael Biehn, who I've always thought was a great character, and I think he should have done more with his career. He should have been in more A-list movies, I think, leading them. And also Bill Paxton as well as a big character, as he was in this film. Lance Henriksen as well, and all the other actors, they all just complement this bunch. Now, of course, the new android on this mission is Lance Henriksen's Bishop. And of course, Ripley is very rightly cautious about his presence, considering what she already went through with Ash. And of course, thanks to her great acting, you already know what's going through her head before she opens her mouth. You know, Burke's presence as well doesn't help. He just seems to be a two-faced weasel of a character, doesn't he? And his character suits that part perfectly as the company man. And you know, he's got other priorities. Now, I did mention Sigourney Weaver's great acting, but I think that compliment should be extended to the whole cast here, especially Carrie, Henn, who played Newt. For a first-time actress, first-time child actress, from an American family, and she also put on an English accent for the role. I mean, the level of acting there is superb, and also the fact that this was her one-and-done role, and she didn't want to pursue acting. It's astonishing, isn't it? But, you know, everyone's got their preferences in life. and this is a feather in her cap that I don't think she'll ever top if she did continue acting. And of course the introduction of her character as a 10-year-old child, I think she was, it seems so obvious when we've established that the character of Ripley already lost her daughter and she missed her life by 57 years. Newt of course would become her daughter theoretically. See, the story almost wrote itself, didn't it? So obvious. Now, I've spoken a lot about all the good points of this film, how much of a great story it is, but for me there are just a couple of little nitpicks. There's a portion in the middle of the film that I think may have dragged. That portion where they're discussing the whole situation of them being trapped and they've got the sentry guns firing, and it just wasn't that interesting. If the sentry guns are just firing continuously, let's see them firing continuously at something. And they were just there firing while they're indoors discussing. But that really is a nitpick because I was still finding the story quite interesting, even though that was a slower part of the film. And also some of the model effects were a little bit more noticeable at times than they were in the first film. But I have to say, overall, the look of the effects work has been improved since the film has been remastered. I saw this on the Blu-ray and the colour balancing looks a little bit more even, and I trust it even may look a bit better on the 4K. I recall when I first saw this film on DVD, that scene where the dropship is crashing in the background, which was a very good front projection effect. It always looked like the colour was just out. I'm not sure if it was maybe a lack of colour or a lack of contrast, but there was something that always tells you that that was a projection screen. But that was back in the day, and now the film has been remastered since. It looks less obvious now, and I think it was the improvement of the contrast and the overall colour balance, but you can still see it's an effect, as do the shots of the model ships, possibly because those shots are a little bit more ambitious and there's a lot more movement than there were in the previous movie. None of this hurts the film. There's a charm in physical model effects. We can revisit this film now and it still looks fantastic, and none of those sequences pull me out of the film. If anything, they make me smile because I'm just marvelling at how extravagant the effect is. So let's give this a score, shall we? It has to be 5 stars again, and that's for both cuts of the film. You could pick either one and you'll have a fantastic time. I will say though, the special edition is a far superior film. A lot of emotional beats of the story are fleshed out here. There's quite a few additions here and there throughout the film that I don't think should have been cut out in the first place. Maybe the film was too long, and that's not a creative issue with pacing. That's a marketing issue and how many screenings per day they could have. But then again, the original theatrical cut is the one we all know, and even if it was released now, it would still be a 5-star film just for its coolness and its extravagance, and the fact that it's just a nuts action sci-fi horror, all those things. So thank you very much for joining me again for this retrospective revisit of Aliens, the special edition. And have a guess what film I'm going to see next, and I'll come back with my review of that on the channel very soon. It's very good of you to join me once again, and I'll speak to you again shortly. All the best to you. Speak soon. Take care.